What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? You're here with JP, Tommy, and Caleb. Hey, by the way, Quentin's not here tonight. We made fun of his hair comb over last night, and he's getting plugs done. So we just have to let him get his plugs done, and then he'll, maybe things will change. Just kidding. He had something to do. So
he's traveling. He's coming back to Kansas City. I think he told me. So
is that what he's doing?
Yeah, he's actually told me he's going to Raw home opener tomorrow.
Oh, so it's not there.
Yeah. He's going to home opener. I forgot, honestly, the home opener was tomorrow. So, Royals, here we come. But we got the Chiefs to talk about.
That's right.
You guys doing all right and everything?
JP, I like you very much with the goatee, man. I was watching the intro. And the clean face look, man, it just wasn't right. The goatee, baby, all day.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a very uneventful day, to a degree. There was a little bit of OBJ talk, a little bit of D-Hop talk, which sounds like that's not going anywhere. The Bills adamantly said they are not going after D-Hop. What do you guys think of that?
I'll go first. That's not true. That is definitely not true. Anytime the Chiefs want a player, teams like the Bills, the Bengals, the Patriots, the Dolphins are going to try to see what can we do to get them. Why do we want the Chiefs to get better? Right now, the Chiefs are on the very top of the hill. And when they're looking down the hill, they see the Bengals trying to run up. They see the Dolphins trying to run up. And the Chiefs just keep kicking them down the hill. Every time they get better and better players and veterans come in, they get stronger, stronger, and stronger. So naturally, what we're seeing is all these different teams are like, we want to climb the mountain. Right now, the Chiefs have been at the top of that mountain twice in 5 seasons and have been almost there to the top of it 2 other times. Actually, no, yeah, 2 other times. So what we see is going to happen is those teams are going to go after, specifically the Bills. Now, the whole situation is this. When you look at the Bills and their offense, great offense they put together. But here's the problem. Stephon Diggs, is he really going to want to share the ball with a DeAndre Hopkins?
I'm the man.
When we look,
remember that?
Hey, yeah, he said he's not. I hear him. I don't know how that's going to work out. So I don't think that will happen unless you do like a trade for trade. But I know good and well Diggs is not going to go to the Cardinals. He's not going there. He wants to win. He's been almost there several times. And unfortunately, he's going to probably end up going somewhere else. I don't know what's going to happen because you see there's a lot of tension going on there.
What do you think, Tommy?
I think it's a lot of lip service, fellas, because if you think about it, here's the deal. It's kind of the old cliche. If you can't have that person, right, you don't want your enemy to have that person, right? Yeah. You think about the Bills' offense, man. If they had D-Hops, man, come on. Think about what they can do. They control the middle of the field, and then they control down the field. That's a problem for any secondary. So depending on the price tag, which I think the biggest holdup right now from any team, including the Chiefs, getting DeAndre is just the price tag is too high right now. And I think the closer, and the contract. Yeah, the contract for real. That's a lot of money for a player. Was he 30 right now? 30 years old?
Yeah, 31, I think.
Okay. So he's probably turning 32 at some point in time next year or during the season this year or whatever. But the thing is that I think it's a lot of lip service because people are going to say they're not in. But I guarantee you, as the Cardinals start to get closer to the draft and immediately after the draft that they haven't already trading, they know that he doesn't want to be there. And they know that they're not going anywhere next year. They're not going to go to the playoffs, I don't believe, next year. They're a couple years away at least. Yeah. So you have a disgruntled player, right? And then you have a price tag that's too big. At some point in time, they're going to have to find a median, right, to get rid of him and get him to a place he wants and get something back from him. And I think in terms of a player that can become a cancer, not saying that DeAndre would do that, but hey, receivers have a knack of being divas, especially when they don't get their way. I think that the Bills, the Chiefs, and several other teams are still in it. Even though they're going to give you lip service saying that they're not in it, they're in it, man, because if they can get it for the right price tag, you take it because he automatically makes your team better.
Where do you think they're going to come up with the money, though? That's my question. They got to pay Josh. They're going to have to extend him or do something. They got an injured 33-year-old defensive player that they paid an ignorant amount of money to that they can't just drop tomorrow. So he don't have no out on that thing. I don't know, man.
I think with I forgot the Von Miller. Actually, next season is when they set up his deal, 3-year deal. It's basically, I think, a 2-year deal with a out, because there's one part specifically where he is owed a lot of money, and we see he's not going to make it there. Maybe he could be a surprise cut. That could very well happen. Now, here's my hope: is if he does that cut, hey, come to Kansas City. Come to Kansas City.
I thought Von Miller's contract was longer than that.
I thought it was a 3-year deal. And was basically a 2-year deal because the third deal had so much money backed into it. It was like $40 million. Because that deal was so massive, we could see the last year was inflated. I'll look it up. You guys continue talking. I'll look up the deal.
I tell you what, it's from 2022, 2023. It's a 3-year deal.
Mm-hmm. And the cap hit that last year, that third year, is a lot more than what it's supposed to be right now. So I don't know. But we see with the Bills, they don't have the money. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of teams, the only teams who have money are teams who are struggling. And yeah, the two-fold situation. And Tommy, you're gonna hear me say this a lot, and JP's heard it 1,000 times. About to hear 1,001. What we're gonna see is this: you have players. Go ahead. What?
I'm sorry. It's a 6-year deal. He signed a 6-year deal for $130 million. I thought it was dumb. It was a 6-year,
okay. Okay. I thought it was in like a 3-year deal where they could cut it off eventually because it's inflated.
Well,
is that how
it may be a 3-year cut? Okay, but he's got.
Oh well,
it's a 6-year, $120 million deal. He had an $18 million signing bonus, roughly $51.4 million guaranteed. If Vaughn were to complete the 6-year deal, he'd be 40 years old.
That's crazy.
That's not going to happen.
Tell me what kind of a GM signs a 33-year-old defensive player to a 6-year deal on 120 that just came off a fat-ass injury.
Yeah. Hey, here's another thing, though. We talk about the quarterback situation in Buffalo. You think about Lamar. They're at a crossroads with Josh right now because you got to think he's taking, if not as much, very complimentary amount of hits as to Jackson, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, his first couple of years in the league, he couldn't throw the ball. His accuracy was horrible. He had a cannon, but couldn't throw it. But he can run it. He's a dual threat. I mean, he's hit the Chiefs so many times and other teams by just running the ball. I mean, he's a big dude. He's like, 6'4", like 245, 250, something like that. But here's the problem, though. If you are Buffalo, do you pay him that big contract? Because here's the deal. At some point in time, if he doesn't, start to be able to push the ball downfield and be accurate and become a really good or deep threat type of passer, he's going to continue to run it and break down like every other running quarterback has done. I mean, look at Mike Vick. Mike Vick is one of the best athletes we've ever seen in the NFL, ever. I mean, the guy 4.3 speed, has a cannon of an arm, can do it all, right? And if you look at his career, he didn't start getting more accurate until he started to break down because he couldn't run as much or chose not to because he saw where it would land him. So here's my question is, do you give that, $300, $400 million deal to Josh Allen now? Do you think he's going to last? Do you think it's going to get any better? Because right now you're at a crossroads because your window's closing if you're Buffalo because of your cap. Your cap is horrendous right now. And so what do you do? I mean, that's the big question for them.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, they're in a position that I just don't think they can take on basically, $58 million deal? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's basically what they're taking, a $58 million contract. I don't know where they would come up with that money. Now, I know he said he was willing to restructure, so if you're going to restructure him and you stretch it out over a 5-year period on another 31-year-old player, then you might as well just take that damn GM out to the pasture because he don't know what he's doing. I mean, it's just that simple. What I have heard is that they're losing faith in McDermott, and they're definitely losing faith in Allen because he makes so many erratic decisions. So, especially when he's under the gun, when he's under pressure, he makes erratic decisions. He makes errant throws. I mean, what do you have? 32. He accounted for 32 basically interception, drop passes, and fumbles in the 2022 season. 32. If you took them all combined, he had 19 interceptions. So
a lot of red zone interceptions. Just not seeing defenders. Not seeing them. And the next thing you know, pick and then they run the ball. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane. Also, what Tommy was saying, his body might break down. I mean, he's a bigger guy, so I think he has a better chance of taking maybe the punish more than a Lamar who's struggling, or we saw Mike Vick. You guys may disagree with me there because you see Josh Allen's a more built quarterback, but he can only do it so much. And also, here's the other issue: his arm.
Yeah.
There was rumor last year he may have had Tommy John surgery.
Cam
So
Newton,
that's come
too.
up every other year. He's had that type of injury. That's only going to get worse. So I don't know what he's doing, what type of pain medication he's taking, what's going on, but that is not good. So I don't know if he's going to get the back on him. If he does this is what's going to happen. The Bills will not be able to be competitive. We're going to see Josh Allen's going to have one or two situations. Either number one, he wants to take the bag, get all the money he can, or he can do what Brady and most importantly Mahomes have done. Multiple winning quarterbacks right there. Do I take a team-friendly deal that allows me to have money, but I can make more endorsement deals? The people love this guy in Buffalo. He can get some commercials, I feel like, if they push hard enough for him. So he can make some of that money back, I feel personally. But is at the crossroad, what are they going to do? And what is he going to do? Because I don't see him playing for any other team. But the decision where his contract will tell a lot about the team's future success.
I will say this. The only national commercial he has got is with Gillette, and he doesn't have enough to shave. So, I mean, if you're going to pick a guy.
I'm just saying, he has the opportunity to get something in that Buffalo area that could expand to other areas.
He does.
But I do agree with you. That's the only one.
It is. Mm-hmm. And he has to put himself in a position to where people are going to want to endorse him. And that's something that he hasn't been able to do yet. Gillette did it because, I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of facial hair, and so the blades aren't going to wear out that quickly. It does look like it's taking everything off in one swipe. But in reality, he hasn't done anything, and he has pissed a lot of people off with his antics on the field, especially playing against the Chiefs. He's, kicked a guy in the Nuggets. He hit somebody in the head. He gets mad if he gets tackled.
Threw a football several times, did it in college, done in NFL.
Exactly. I mean, hell, he grabbed his own damn offensive lineman in practice and tried to fight him, and that dude would have killed him. So I think his mindset is destroying his ability to be able to go out on a national endorsement level. Is he going to get stuff in Buffalo? Well, yeah. But it's not going to be anywhere near the $80 million that like Mahomes got from State Farm, and then Mahomes got Coors, and Mahomes got this, and Mahomes got that. I mean, Mahomes has been endorsed 9 times now? He's got everybody.
Yeah, a lot of things he's been with.
Everybody.
National stuff. Call of Duty. He's been with everything. Yeah. Every single thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he got him and Troy Polamalu doing Head and Shoulders commercials, which, I mean, look,
never not working. Baby.
Yeah, never not working. So, that's the thing. I mean, and then he's bringing in Coach Reed that's never done a commercial in his life. And he's got Reed doing commercials. Those are awesome. I mean, to get Reed to do a commercial is just unbelievable in its own right.
There's a lot of pressure on Al, though. You got to think about it like this because, how much, and I don't have the numbers sitting in front of me, but I know he's got to account for a lot of what they do on offense. And you think about he's a running back and a quarterback. They don't have a running game. You know what I'm saying? I don't think. Yeah, it's not there. And so if you think about the pressure that he has on him to produce, especially, you already know that you're going to have a rival in Patrick Mahomes. Now you got Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Everything's starting to continue to compile on top of his list of what he's got to tackle to make his team successful. So I think a lot of what the struggles or what struggles he's actually going through has a lot to do with what he has around him. Don't get me wrong, man. Stephon Diggs is a beast, but man, after that, you really don't have much. And I think that's his biggest problem.
Yes, they have, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but they have some good role players. They got some good guys like Isaiah McKenzie, Gabriel Davis, what's his name, Khalil Shakir from Boise State. I mean, they got some guys that can play, but they're not like on that higher level tier besides maybe Gabriel Davis who's just balling. So, I mean, they got to get more oomph in that offense, got to keep going. And you saw how they stalled out against the Bengals. That's pretty bad, especially if you're at home. You guys play in the snow all the time. The Bengals don't really be playing like that often. Cold, understand, but they got beat on their own field pretty bad. In a year where everyone was saying, Chargers, Chargers, Chargers. Oh, well, Chargers sit down. Bills, Bills, Bills. They're the Super Bowl favorite. Literally, every single year, they say that the Chiefs are not the Super Bowl favorite. The Chiefs come up and take that spot. It's just how it goes. And because of that, we're going to see is Josh Allen's a great quarterback, but he has a massive hurdle to climb. And the only way he's going to get through that if he can get to the AFC Championship game and win it. Bonus if he can beat Mahomes and the Chiefs. But the way their team's set up right now, I just don't see how they can do it as of right now. In a regular season game, we lose. It is what it is. Andy Reid's not pulling off all the stops. As JP says, he has a playbook the size of Stephen King novel that's this thick. Andy Reid ain't going past page 3 when he playing the Bills. Now he go page 233, 540 to get his plays when in the playoffs. But when it comes to those regular season games, they're going to do the vanilla like offense. So they can keep having those victories in the regular season because what it comes down to is you give the Chiefs a shot, they're going to do very well in the playoffs.
I agree.
Don't you think that there's a possibility that the Cardinals might eat some of DeAndre Hopkins' contract to get him out of there if they get the draft pick?
They have to. They have to. There is no way a team is going to take him unless they eat a portion of that contract. The only way I'm going to see that they'll take it fully is what we saw kind of what the Lions and Jared Goff did, where they switched, where Jared Goff went to the Lions and the Lions took on his contract, but the Lions and then picks were sent back and forth, basically 2 firsts. So that may be a situation, but I just don't see a team mortgaging their future to first-round picks off a guy like that. Now, JP was saying, would you say, JP, the compensation was like a 2-day 3 pick or something like that? It's possibly it's way off from what it was.
Yeah.
Quentin said that 1 of the 2. Yeah, I said that.
Yeah, they were trying to get 2 seconds out of him, and now they're saying, a couple of day 3 picks. Well, let me put it this way: they're contemplating it. They don't have a whole lot of contemplating to do, because look, man, regardless of how you look at it, they got to figure out what they're going to do about a quarterback, because Kyler Murray is not going to be there for the first 6-8 weeks of the season if he comes back at all.
Doug Flutie Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Damn straight. So they got to come up with the quarterback money. They got players they got to pay. Kyler Murray, to me, I think he's got talent. I just don't think he's going to be able to make it in this league. I don't particularly think he's going to.
I think he needs the right team and the right system. Like he was in the 49ers, so he'd be balling, with all due respect.
He might.
They got an offensive line. They got weapons. He don't got that in Arizona. That's how I feel personally. If you can put them on the right team. Maybe the Colts could be another team. They got a good offensive line. They got some good players. But Arizona, they may move on from him after next season. It may get that bad. And it's probably going to get a lot worse for the Cardinals and be the whole thing all over again. I think in my lifetime, and I'm only 24, the Cardinals have been maybe good 3 seasons, and one of them was when Kurt Warner went to the Super Bowl. So they have a lot to figure out.
Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame receiver.
Yeah.
That's the last time they were good.
Yeah.
They don't have any Hall of Famers right now.
No. I mean, it's going to be a strange. I think that entire division is going to be really different this year. I think you're going to see the Ravens regress. You're going to see the Bills regress. I think you're going to see the Patriots play a lot better than they played before. And I feel like Miami is going to be better after they decide what they're going to do with Tua. And I have a strange feeling that if Lamar Jackson gets out of his contract and they just cut him, that's where he goes.
Mm-hmm. So where Miami?
100%. That's where he's from. He's from that area. He's from Miami.
That would be sick, man. Either that or the 49ers. Could you imagine him in the 49ers offense?
He would be good with them. They would be doing some stuff we've never seen before at all. So.
Man, if they get Lamar Jackson with that wide receiver core, we're screwed. Everybody, not we're screwed, but that's going to be one ignorant team to beat. I'm sorry, but that's going to be it's going to be tough.
Hey, if he's smart, he'll go to the NFC. If he actually got out of his contract, because look at the NFC team or the NFC teams, man. There's really no competition over there. Why do you think Brady still around as long as he did? In Tampa Bay, he's like, dude, he's like, all we got to do is get in the playoffs. We can just about get to the NFC Championship game because really, besides Philadelphia, because Philadelphia was one who was a 2 seed last year in the NFC.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I don't know. And we're hearing stories right now. I mean, there's a lot of talk going around about how Philly is going to regress. And they feel like, what's up, Colin? They're saying that Philly's going to regress, that it's not going to be the same football team. The coaching staff is going to be different. Sirianni was not the reason why they got to the point where they were at, which, hey, man, we all know look, you can have the greatest head coach in football and you can still have a losing season if you don't have the right coaches around you. Bill Belichick just proved that. Who knows what they're going to end up doing? We don't know. You know who's going to be an interesting football team this year? The Texans.
Yeah,
they're going to be an interesting football team this year.
They're going to make a run for sure. They will make a run.
Who'd they sign at quarterback?
That's the $1 million question. We don't know who they're going to take in the draft.
Okay.
Hey, not only that, Lamar really likes that head coach.
Oh yeah, damn it! You think he'll be there?
D'Amico Ryans? You think
he loves Ryans? I'm just telling you, and Ryans loves him. Man, there are so many different possibilities. What's up, Philip? There's so many different possibilities that can come about with this Lamar Jackson situation. And one other possibility is this. What if he stays? What if they finally give him what he wants and he just stays? Do we think that's going to happen? Probably not. He's already said his goodbyes. When the man says his goodbyes, he means it. I'm sorry, but when I look, man, it's no different than a divorce. When you're walking out that door on a divorce and you go, I'm sorry, bye, and you got your bag in your hand, that means you're leaving.
JP, are you saying he's got a one-way ticket and not a round trip?
Damn Skippy. He bought a one-way ticket and it was a lot cheaper. So, and I'm going to tell you right now, I think he bought that ticket last year. He's just been sitting on it. I've been saying this every show for a year that he would not come back this season. And this is the season that it looks like he's not coming back. I feel like it's a divorce. It's an ugly divorce. It's a TMZ style divorce, and it's just going to keep getting worse. That's what it feels like to me.
That surprised me with the Harbaugh team because from the outside perspective, it looks like they're organized, well run, saying they got command of the locker room. And for that to go south the way it did is absolutely surprising me because you would think with their sustained success over the last 10 years that that wouldn't come about. Now you look at Green Bay, and it's the S show. You know what I'm saying? Who knows what the hell goes on up there? But if you look at Baltimore and you look at the last 10 years, and when Ozzie Newsome was a GM for a while, after player after player after player, and they just plugged them in, and they just ran like a well-oiled machine. And they still do that to a certain extent now. I mean, the defense the last couple of years has fallen off, but you wouldn't think that there would be chaos in that locker room, especially between the head coach. Sounds like the head coach and the quarterback aren't seeing eye to eye as well as the quarterback.
And one thing to piggyback off your point, Tommy, I think Ozzie Newsome's last draft, he got from Lamar Jackson. I think he's not the GM no more. That was his last draft. So I have a feeling there's an issue between the GM of the team now and then also the head coach, Harbaugh. I mean, I think at this point, they may have to part ways after this season.
I remember last year, Caleb.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. You heard there were rumblings of that probably happening then after they blew that game against the Dolphins.
There was an early meeting set up on that, by the way. There was a Wednesday afternoon press conference set up by the Ravens, and it got canceled last minute. Look, man, if you're going to do a Wednesday afternoon press conference last minute that you're firing your head coach. And that was their plan. I don't know how he got out of it, but he did. I was surprised that it continued through this year and he's still there, to be honest. Especially with this whole Lamar Jackson situation, the fact that he doesn't know how to draft offensive players. Philip brought up something. Collins says, I don't think any team wants to work with him. He's asking too much money. He's not an Allen or a Burrow or a Justin. He wants Mahomes' money. To a degree, that's true. He's got 4 injuries now. He's won 1 playoff game. But here's the thing. He hasn't had – I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't had the weapons that he deserved. And the one weapon that he did have, they took away from him without him even knowing it. So when you disrespect your quarterback like that, and he is a dynamic quarterback, there's no doubt about it. When you disrespect a guy that way and he finds out on Twitter that he just lost his damn best wide receiver, which wasn't even a top 20 wide receiver at the time.
He was a first round. I will say Hollywood Brown had some potential. Don't worry, Corey. We'll get to your draft comments in a little bit. But Hollywood Brown was just phenomenal. Go Jake. I'll let you finish it.
No, I think he had it was the wrong time. You had Hollywood Brown in a situation when Lamar Jackson wasn't a very good passer of the ball. So they relied on going a different direction. You see what I'm saying? Okay, well, let's just run the ball and get him some drop, some RPOs, and we got Mark Andrews. We'll just move on from him. He don't need him anyway. Well, that's not necessarily true because when you got a quarterback that's going to inevitably get better and practice at getting better at throwing the ball, then you have to have a guy like Hollywood because Hollywood actually did. He wasn't the best wide receiver in the league by no means. He was good. He wasn't one of the
speed.
best. He had speed. One of the better route runners. I just think he was fed up with not getting fed the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it was a run-first offense. And then after Hollywood got traded, Lamar did more throwing. So it's just kind of like understand the first year when Lamar started, he wasn't the best passer. They struggled. The second year, it got a little bit better. But then we see kind of the last couple of years, it's gotten a lot overall better than what it was. But Hollywood Brown just didn't want to be there anymore. And he probably saw the writing wall and dysfunction. Got traded to the Cardinals. Be honest, the grass isn't green over there. So he's probably going to end up on another team. So he may have the John Ross trip and things like that. So.
Yeah.
That was. I remember that.
But let me ask you a question, though. Who has Marcus Peters not fought with? He's fought with every coach he's had. He's fought with a few fans in the stands. He fought with some guy that he met at Walmart. I mean, he just fights with everybody. That dude's he's an angry individual. He needs anger management classes.
Yeah, he does.
He's got to get some control of that anger because he's always mad. I guess, he caused his own problems here, and I know those problems. I'm not going to get into it too much on air about what went on in the front office. But there were some choice words said between him and Clark Hunt that didn't go over very well, and that's what got him booted. It wasn't the whole kneeling thing or any of that.
He was talking crap after we had lost that playoff game, remember? And they asked him about something about the playoffs.
Yeah.
He said something to we're not going to win here with like this or something like that. Like he pretty much wrote his own in on the wall when he did that.
He wasn't a team player. He wasn't. I mean,
Yeah.
after that first season, he got exposed. And as much as I like Marcus Peters and I hated the move, it had to be done, unfortunately. That's why I tell everyone this. You can't get attached to Chiefs players besides Mahomes. Mahomes is probably most likely going to be here for a long time. Kelsey's going to be here. Chris Jones. But another player like a Jalen Watson or Frank Clark, they may not be here. And that's just kind of one of the things we're going to see happen. The greatest players, I mean, they traded them for a 4th and a 6th round pick. I mean, that's not bad. But that was Veach's matchup plan. And overall,
one-dimensional, man. He was one-dimensional.
No,
And
I
that
agree
was,
because and it hurt him. It hurt the team.
It did.
It hurt the team.
You can't be a one-dimensional corner. That
Yeah,
is a
he's horrible as
multifaceted
man.
position. Yeah.
Great at zone and horrible at man. Man, I'll tell you this, though, I'm not even like I still today I've been reading on the internet and people are still up in arms about this receiver position not being filled. And I'm telling you, man, I'm not that worried about it right now. I don't see it being a problem because I think they are gonna pick somebody up. I think they will pick up somebody. I think there's a good possibility that it won't be like a top tier name though. Like they'll pick up someone to fill that void, just like they did with Juju. Juju, I mean, when he first came in the league, his first year or two, he was really good. But then, injuries kind of derailed him. Playing with Ben Roethlisberger's
That killed
skeleton
him.
derailed him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about that. My thing is, man, I can't wait till this draft gets here, man. There is so many players out there in the draft right now that will work good in this offense and in this defense right now. And that's what I'm looking forward to because I was just reading before I got on here. I think I was on Google and they were talking about there was a running back in Iowa. Was it Iowa, I think? Ran like a 4.26 or something like that. He's just a freak of an athlete, and he wasn't on people's radar. Now he is. I mean, there's probably a dozen guys out there in the draft that are just freaks of nature that nobody knows about right now. So that's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, why are we so worried, as the Red Kingdom about getting a marquee wide receiver when Brett Veach and those scouts are going to find people to fill in those roles for Mahomes? And they don't have to be the best because Mahomes is going to make them better every single game.
And not only that, man, how many years it was he? Okay, so 5 straight AFC championship games and 3 Super Bowls. And we had 1 year that we went to 2 years we went to the Super Bowl with a marquee wide receiver. And that was Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, the last year of Tyreek Hill's deal with us in not last year. Well, last year was terrible, but caught a lot of balls, dropped a lot of balls, caused a lot of interceptions, just different things that went on. But he played terrible in the 2020 Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Mahomes did everything he could possibly do to get him that ball. And he just dropped everything that went his way. I don't know if that was bitterness from other situations that I know about that I'm not going to speak of, or if that was just him just playing like crap. I have no clue.
Well, I mean, he got what he wanted. He got the $30 million, but he had a lot of drop balls, a lot of interception. Unfortunately, is this what saved him is he had one of the best statistical seasons, and he won the ball more. Come on now, Tyreek. With all due respect, man, we love you, but Brett Veach was smart to trade you for 5 picks, five picks that ended up turning into vital starters.
Yeah.
It worked out. Unfortunately, that's going to happen in the business. And I thought Tyreek Hill was going to retire, Chief. But he was like, I won my Super Bowl. I got my money now. I want to go somewhere else.
Well,
yeah, I think it was a good break, though, because everything I heard about was like, hey, he had his choice between the Jets and the Dolphins, and he picked the Dolphins because, he loves Miami, plus Kansas City was going to get way more compensation for him. So I don't think it was a negative breakup. I mean, from a fan perspective, it was heartbreaking because you took the best deep threat the game has seen probably in the last 15, 20 years, and maybe ever, to be honest with you, just because of the speed. But at the same time, though, if you think about it, his departure, I think, actually made Patrick Mahomes' game step up to another level because now he's not just sitting in the pocket or scrambling around waiting for Tyreek to get open. He's actually scanning the whole field and spreading the ball around. And if you talk to some of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, they said it's easy when you got 1 or 2 marquee guys to key on. I mean, you can take them away, you can double team them. But he says it's a problem when your quarterback can get the ball anywhere. And this guy, Mahomes, can throw it anywhere, at any angle, at any time. And so it just makes him that much more of a threat when you put receivers that can get open, and they don't have to be top tier, but they understand the scheme, they understand the system, they can get into the holes. And if he can get them to him, just think about Marcus Kemp, dude. I go back to that playoff game when he threw that ball to Marcus Kemp for a first down. Marcus Kemp, when he caught the ball, it looked like he was like, oh, it's coming my way.
Yeah. and then it was like, oh, shit, I caught it. I mean, this man had more tackles than he had catches in the NFL. And, so I guess that was a great point. I forgot about that. I think people are just greedy. And they don't understand the game. They don't understand what we have in this coaching staff and in a quarterback. If it was, look, man, hey, man, if I was the Buffalo Bills fans right now, I'd be sideways if we didn't have top tier wide receivers because Allen needs that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a Joe Burrow, a Cincinnati fan, I'd be pissed. I'm not worried about it. I ain't been worried since Mahomes been in the league.
Mm-hmm.
His first year changed my mind. And I'll be the first one to say, I was like, oh, man, I don't know. I don't know if this is a good idea to put him in, on that last year Alex contract just to cut him. I thought he needed another year. He definitely didn't. He didn't need that other year. He just needed to play. He probably could have played the year he was drafted. But I think Alex helped him a whole lot. It calmed him down, got him out of that Brett Favre mindset, and put him in a position to win. And it just is what it is. But let's get to some of these draft pick questions because Corey's having a conniption fit. The other 4 years are falling out of his head right now. He's losing it.
What up, Corey?
So where we at here? Let's go. He said my here. Let me go all the way back.
I want to put on the screen too.
I'm going to. He said, you know who I want in the first round? I'm going to put every one of your things up. You already know who I want in the first round. Then he put, here it is. My dream first round pick, even if we have to move up some spots, is Nolan Smith. What do you guys think of Nolan Smith?
Go ahead, Tom.
So I'll tell you this: good player, really good player. I think the level of competition that he played against was really good. And I think that speaks a lot to what he probably could do in his first year if the Chiefs were to select him. But I think there's several players at his caliber that may be available a little bit later in the draft. So, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to taking him in the first round, but I think if you can get either a starting offensive lineman or a day one cornerback or defensive lineman, I think you go there at that point. But no, I think it's a really good choice, though, Corey. I mean, I really wouldn't knock it, but like I said, the draft this year is really deep in certain positions, and I think that they could find something comparable to him in the second or third round.
I like Nolan Smith. He is coming off a pectoral injury. We have seen guys come back from that. Most recently, one I can remember was Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame, offensive lineman with the Colts. So if they can grab him, great. I would not trade up. I do agree with Tommy says they can get other guys later in the round. I mean, we're right in the process of putting together our draft board. Philip and our other writer Keaton. We are kind of looking at specific players the Chiefs should get. He's not. I'm gonna be honest with you. Not many people were thinking the Chiefs were gonna get George Karlaftis. They weren't thinking that name. 2 things about George Karlaftis. Number one, what college did he go to, you guys?
Purdue.
Yep. And what conference is that in?
It's Big East, right?
Not Big Ten. And then real quick, last question. Who are the big teams in the Big Ten? Just give me the 2 teams that everyone always talks about.
Michigan State?
It's okay. Basically, it's Michigan State, Ohio State, and Michigan. No one's talking about Purdue. No one's talking about Maryland. That's how Diggs went under the radar. The Chiefs got Karlaftis when he was at Purdue. Also, we see another specific player the Chiefs got, Pacheco, out of Rutgers. They are not going to always go after these guys from these quote-unquote big-name schools. Sometimes their game does not just translate well. They're going to get those guys that are in the middle of the pack that are hungry, that are ready to go. JP says 1,000 times. Brett Veach just wants that guy that from those Power 5 schools, to just be honest. We see Kareem Hunt was from Toledo. We see Tyreek Hill was from South Alabama. These guys are willing to work and put in the work to get to where they need to be. And that's more coachable and teachable than getting a guy out of Ohio State. Now, would I take a wide receiver from Ohio State if they drop the Chiefs? Heck yeah, I would take it. But that's different compared to other positions that the Chiefs could possibly get.
Also, too, you got to remember that when you got players coming from these SEC schools like Alabama and Georgia, they are surrounded by 5-star athletes all across.
Absolutely.
So that kind of can skew what they can do. Not saying that I think the guy runs like a 4.39 or something like that. So not saying that he wouldn't be the guy, but you got to think though, there's probably 6 other guys on that team that can do the same thing that are sitting right behind him. So my point is this: if you can get that type of player in the lower round, then you take it because you know as I do, when it comes to your first round picks, those picks are supposed to hit no matter what. Your number one pick better hit. Your second round pick should hit too, and then everything after that is kind of a toss up. So I think that Nolan Smith would be a good outside linebacker, pass rusher, all that stuff. I think it'd be good, but I can't say that what he did at Georgia would translate to what he can do in the NFL because of what he was surrounded by. That's the only thing that would give me hesitation to pick him. Because if you look at his physical attributes, they jump off the table. I mean, anytime you can get a guy that can rush the passer sub 4.4, you want to take it. But at the same time, one of the great what was the guy's name? Outside linebackers. I think he ran like a 4.6, 4.7 something. I can't think of his name, and he dropped in the draft because of it. Did he play? Was he with the? Was he with the Colts?
Was it who's the player? What team were they on?
It was Suggs. Remember what it Suggs?
Terrell Suggs.
Yeah, it was Terrell Suggs. He was awesome, but then he went into the draft, and because he ran like a 4.6 or 4.7 something, he just dropped.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about that whole thing. I know we all want to know about 40 times. You had players that kill the combine and get drafted high and don't do well. But you have guys like the Terrell Suggs that may not run a quote-unquote fast 40. But there's difference between the 40 time and the game speed. The only player who's probably had the same of both is Tyreek Hill. But Mahomes didn't run the best 40, but he running fast out in the field enough to get there. I mean, I understand we put a lot into the combine, but at the end of the day, too, you got to see what the player can do and what pops off the film, literally. What pops off your computers from where you're watching it. I mean, so many dominant players fall due to these measurements. I mean, like, they say due to size of some of these guys. I mean, one example is Bob Sanders. You guys were here with the Colts. Great safety. Size hurt him a lot, but he was able to do a lot of different things before he officially had to retire. I mean, you have some dominant guys out there. I just think when you look at the combine, you can't look at every senior measurable and say, well, the quote-unquote typical guy needs to be 6'4", 250, and all these different things. No, sometimes a guy maybe 6'1" or 5'11" can do just as great.
And absolutely, and we're getting back to what, piggybacking off what Tommy said, look at Clyde. He's a great example of somebody that came from an all-world school, one of the best generational offensive lines in football, and one of the better quarterbacks in football, in college football, and couldn't translate to the NFL. Not in our system anyway. So it doesn't always make a difference if you're going after these guys from these top schools with all the top accolades. They may just not fit within your system. And Veach sees a lot of that. My player is DeJuan Jones. That's who I want them to get. I want them to grab him. I don't care when they have to grab him. They just need to grab him. Look, man, I don't care how many. Look, that dude is a monster. He's got an 8-foot wingspan. I'm not kidding you. The dude looks like a pterodactyl on the field. There's something. Look, man. I mean, when he can hold, dude can hold three people, three defensive linemen, just hold him in one spot.
Oh, he's a tackle?
Yeah, bro. Look him up.
What college?
Let me think. Now you got me stumped. I can't
It's
think
not the kid out of Tennessee, right?
Is it Tennessee?
Oh, is this an offensive lineman?
Offensive lineman.
From Ohio State, correct?
Ohio State.
I think Philip was talking about Philip. If that was put that in the chat, I think
I was getting ready to say Iowa State, and it's Ohio State. The dude is a monster, man. And I'm telling you, I was watching this one. I did actually. Quentin is the one that brought him to my attention, and I was watching a film, a study a little bit of him, and these two defensive linemen bull rushed him along with a safety. This man stuck his arms out like this, and he didn't even move 2 inches backwards, and they just came to a dead stop like they hit a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw that, I thought, okay, this dude will translate into the NFL and do it very well in our system. He's a right tackle. We need a right tackle. We already got a guy that can transfer to left tackle. We know he's athletic enough to do it. We just signed his ass. Why not go after this dude and pick him up and say and call it a day because he's a day one starter. I don't care what anyone says. He's a day one starter as a right tackle, and
I
that's
agree.
man, that's the spot that we need. If you want to protect Mahomes and give him all the time in the world, that's the guy you need to put at right tackle. I'm just telling you, he's going to be a phenom. This group of and there's a defensive edge rusher out of the same school that I'd like to see us pick up. I can't think of his name right now. It's slipping my mind. But I watched a lot of film on him as well. And this dude never wasn't in the backfield. Fast off the ball. Reminded me of a bigger Frank Clark. He was fast, quick, put a quarterback on his back. Running back couldn't get past him. The ball every time he was in the game, the ball didn't get past the line of scrimmage. If the people just they ran from him. When they saw him coming, they just stepped out of the way. It was like a bull rush. He's really good. What's he saying? What's Corey? He says day one start easily. Will manhandle people and would have the nicest right side of the line. Absolutely.
Smith, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. The guy is just, I don't know, bro. He's insane. I don't, and he's huge. I think he's 6'8", almost 400 pounds, something like 380 pounds, something like that. He's a boxer, bro.
He fits that size that Reed likes on his offensive tackle.
Yeah, absolutely.
He likes monsters out there. What do you guys think about this kid, Miles Murphy, man, a defensive end?
I heard good things about him.
Yeah. What colleges? I know. What is it? Washington or what college?
I think he's out of Clemson. Yeah, Miles Murphy.
Okay, I have looked at him. He's a pretty good guy. I think you can bring him in. I just don't think Veach is gonna. He hasn't really been big on taking defensive players from Clemson. We see kind of as a whole, they do get a lot of 4- and 5-star recruits, and they do a lot of times have dominated the ACC. I think that is an option. If he were to fall, I see another team jumping him, but I think that's very possible as well. They do make that jump if and only if he falls in a certain area of the draft. After what we saw kind of with the Dorian Daniels situation, and they're not taking all these guys from like an Alabama or Georgia, really, like you guys are saying, because they're surrounded with all these guys. They're kind of looking at these guys from these colleges that have to kind of do it by themselves. But I will say this: if there's an opportunity and he's there, see what you can do. You need edge rush.
Yeah, well, see, it's just like Will Anderson. Remember, not last year, but the year before, he had a great season, right? But they were surrounded by talent on the defensive line. So you look at this past season for Alabama, didn't have as good a year. Defense wasn't as good as it usually is.
Yeah.
His numbers are way down on sacks, So that's one thing you got to really, just take into consideration when you look at these guys. That's why I'd rather sometimes take a guy off a worse record team or team with a worse record, but has some production, because that means that he doesn't have as much talent around him. You can really analyze what he can do on the field. And so a lot of times you'll see these players that come from schools only got 3 or 4 wins, but he's an absolute stud and they can't block him. And plus, if he's that good and other teams are keying on him to stop him and he's still putting up numbers, he's got to be good. It kind of solidifies where he should be at in the NFL instead of just being, a role player. A lot of your first day or day one starters will come from teams that are not that good, but you can see on the field that they can do the job. And I think that's the approach that Veach is going to take this year, because like you said, though, Caleb, they're 32nd, or I guess 31st. Somebody lost the draft pick, so they're 31st this year in the first round. You got to think that, what's going to drop to you that's going to be worth the first round pick. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember the year that they selected Clyde, they were thinking about actually trading that pick to get more draft picks and trade back and stuff like that. I don't think, obviously you don't do that because this year the draft's in Kansas City. But I also think in the same way that maybe depending on what's available, right? If you can get that tackle in the first round, or you can get that edge rusher in the first round, that could be a high second round pick. I think you take him in the first round slot, because why take a chance of him getting taken in the second round? So you got to think of it that way as well, is that if you see a guy on day one and you're at the 31st pick and he could be a high second round pick, but you don't think he's going to be there, why even just waste the capital of trading up in the second round to get him? Just go get him in the first round. Pay him a little bit
Exactly.
more money.
Yeah, I agree. Colin put it up. DeJuan Jones, 6'8", 374, 36.38 arm length. That's insane. And his hands are 11 and 5/8. Dude can 11 and 5/8, man. It's not palming a basketball. It's just completely rapid. I I don't even
Hey,
know.
just think about a dad grabbing the son's back of his son's neck.
Oh damn!
Come
If he
here.
ever has kids and grabs the back of his son's neck, he's done with. That kid's done. He's in the hospital. Uh,
That's a
shoot,
big dude, man.
that's
That's a
a
big.
big old
Well, you
dude,
know what?
man.
Here's the thing, though. That makes sense, and this is why, because you got three guys right now, right, that are kind of in that mix for that right tackle position. Well, guess what? Some of those guys could be slid over to be depth. So, I mean, that might be a good reason why they go after tackle in the first round. I mean, looking at what the needs are specifically for the Kansas City Chiefs, it would make sense if he was available in the first round that you would take him, because then you got what's the kid from BYU that's been he set out a year for COVID and he hurt his knee.
Oh yeah,
Lucas Nyang.
yeah.
Yeah. So Naeem can play, right tackle, and he can slide in to be a backup at right guard or something like that. And then you got what was it? Prince is the other guy that's over there as well.
PWT. Yeah, we call him PWT. Yeah. Prince. I don't know how to do his last.
So
It's
I
hard.
mean, you got to think about depth too, and how the Chiefs should approach this, because I think if you have the opportunity to draft a day one starter, you go get that day one starter. And then you figure out the rest after you have your line set. Because if you get him, now you're going into the season with a complete offensive line, and now you just added depth to it as well. The other thing is, too, if you knock out that offensive line first, now you can focus on tight end, receiver, cornerback, like that. So it's all about, I think I've heard Veach say, hey, sometimes it is about best player available, not always need first, because he said you might reach on a need where that best athlete might put you in a position where you can put
Absolutely.
him in place and be able to use other people as trade bait. So I think that's what they do. I think another thing they need to look at too is that what do you do with your safety position? Because you need three good safeties. I think you got two right now, but I think you need another safety. And where is that going to come from? You want to think about, is it something you want to do in the first 3 rounds, or do you want to go for fourth round and beyond, kind of like he's done with cornerbacks? It's just something to think about.
Yeah, and safety. I mean, it's a pretty good safety class. It's a really good corner class. Safeties. I mean, there's going to be safeties in every round that you can pick up. I mean, really through the fourth, fifth. You probably get one out of the seventh round if you wanted to, but I think there's going to be safeties in every round that you can grab that will fit and do a good job. I mean, look at the guys we picked up out of the draft that were fourth round picks, fifth round picks that turned out to be phenomenal players. So we got that in our arsenal with the 10 picks or 11 picks that we have to be able to wait it out like Veach is so good at doing. He's famous for waiting it out. He made his mistakes. Look, man,
Mhm.
the two mistakes I think he made in the last 3 years. One, he overloaded, and Caleb and I talked about this on a show. He went out and he overloaded on the offensive line. He spent way too much money. He picked up way too many guys that we didn't. You need the depth. I understand that he had to get them from other places because it wasn't a strong offensive line class that year, and I get that part.
Mhm.
He spent the money, with everybody really. Brought in Kyle Long that was out in the woods chopping down trees and living like, I don't know what he was doing out there. It was like he was on the episode of
Yeah.
Alone. And picked him up. He still didn't ever I don't even think he played a snap.
No, I
But
didn't.
got paid. Hey, look, he got paid to come in and do nothing. I mean, it is what it is. So he's made his mistakes there, and he's also made his mistakes with I think picking, how should I say this? Going after players players of need without looking at system versus what they will do within our system. If these players aren't going to fit, what's the point in bringing them in? I don't give a shit how good they are. If you bring them in and they don't fit, what do you got? You got a bag full of money you're giving somebody that doesn't fit in our system, and you're not going to see the field.
Yeah,
You have to have rotational players, but if you can get into a draft like this, that you got heavy depth in the offensive line, heavy depth in the defensive line, and you can pull those players from any round and be okay. Plus what we have on the field right now, when you got Prince, you got Deshaun Wharton that came back, of course, on the other side of the ball. You got guys that are going to be able to fill the spot. You just need the depth to rotate them in and out. And you do have to have a solid offensive line that can play every down. There's no doubt about that. You need that. But if one goes down, you got to have somebody to fill those shoes. And I think that's what Veach is going to go after during this draft, that everybody's going to go, oh, like they're doing right now, the complaints are the whining and all the other stuff about not getting wide receivers to fill wide receiver spots. Damn, man, we just finished the first phase of the free agency. The draft hasn't gotten here yet. And every year it's the same thing with these fans, bro. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, my God, the sky is falling. Every year it happens, and every year, where are we at? AFC Championship game or a Super Bowl?
In the stocks, where we call that FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about it because the man knows what he's doing. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And he's 100 steps ahead of every fan. So he's proven to everybody that he's able to not only bring the right players in, but get to a Super Bowl with those players. Whether they have a great big name or they come from a school nobody's heard of, or they're undrafted, 7th round pick, Pacheco, guys like that. Jalen Watson. I mean, you got all these guys that he brought in that nobody else even wanted to touch, and they came out like stars. So why?
See, that's what I think. That's why I think we got to really, and I might be just stretching at this point, but I just think, and it's been on my mind for like weeks out, and I don't know why, but I just think that he's going to find a tight end in his class. I just, for some reason, every time I start thinking about the Chiefs and thinking about personnel, it's like you got to find somebody to start learning under Kelsey, like right now. Because you got to think 2-3 years, Kelsey probably got 2-3 years. He might stretch it more, but it all depends on injury and then still the passion to do it at that age. But the other thing is that too is like if you can get a tight end, a seriously athletic tight end that now can do 2 years under Kelsey, learn the system with Mahomes and Andy Reid, and think about what that does to the middle of your field. And they like to run 2 and 3 tight end sets. So just think about that. What does that do for defense? If you're a defensive coordinator, you're like, okay, I got to cover Kelsey. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a problem. Well, now I got to cover another tight end that's just as athletic as him in the middle of the field. So now we can't double team him, right? And then you got to have somebody for MVS to go deep. So he's running coverage off. I mean, that opens up the field. And my ideal pick would be a year from now, get the kid from Georgia. That kid's a stud. You know what I'm talking about? The tight end.
Yeah. That's the kid I'm talking about.
Bowers, No, Bowers or the other guy?
Who's the other?
Bowers or that really, really big guy?
There's a guy that modeled his game after Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that kid he's talking about.
He's not coming out. He won't be eligible to come out to next year, I think.
It's Bowers. It's number 19, Bowers, right?
It must be Bowers.
Yeah, because his first 2 years, 2 national championships. Yeah, that's him.
Okay, wait a minute. Philip said this is the guy I'm talking about, Darnell Washington.
Are you sure, JP?
This guy's eligible for this year. The guy
Darnell's eligible for this year.
Okay, no, that's what I'm talking about because the guy I'm talking about, I think it was last year. He was a freshman. Is it Bowers?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's Bowers, number 19.
That's it, number 19. He started the true freshman. That dude's a stud. I like that dude a lot. He won't be eligible because he's got to be 3 years removed from high school, so he won't be eligible until next year.
Okay, I want to know who the kid is, and I can't think of his name right now. Somebody brought his film up to me. I watched it. He is a tight end, eligible this year, coming into the draft. He actually looks like Kelsey when he plays. He modeled his entire career after how Kelsey plays.
Is it that guy from South Dakota State?
Oh, I think I did see
Corey,
that.
maybe you can help us out in the chat. I'm not really for sure.
Corey, Phillip, one of you guys help me out. It might be the kid from South Dakota State.
Because there's a couple good tight ends that are really good.
There are. But this kid here, if you watched him play, you would if he had 87 on his back, you think it was Kelsey playing the game.
I think I've seen that. It is a small. I think it's a smaller school too. I think I did see that. Dalton Kincaid.
That's his name.
Yep.
It's Kincaid.
I've seen his highlights. Yeah, he looks
Actually,
good.
Corey wrote a story. Corey wrote an article about him, so everybody go out there and check that out because it's a good article. That kid is good, very good.
Yes, from Utah.
Yes,
yeah,
Utah.
Is he?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he's
man.
pretty good.
I'm telling you, that kid there is good. He is Kelsey Jr. And I'm telling you, you get him on the field, he's a day one starter. You get him on the field with Kelsey, you got a problem.
What do you think? But here's the question though, and it's all a draft game, because it's like where do you put him in regards of where he should be drafted? So I mean, from the school he's at, right? Do you think he's a third or fourth round pick?
Probably a fourth round pick.
Okay.
I say third. I mean, I feel like when you get to the, I forgot what specific number. I think it's either between the 60s and 90s. There's a stretch where we see in many drafts back to back players taken in that area have been dominant players. I don't remember where that. Maybe it's before pick 100, but we see Alvin Kamara. A couple others just taking over the stretch. But I do believe he could be third round, maybe fourth rounder. Someone may jump people like, hey, we're taking you the second round too. Nothing would surprise me because teams are going to reach because, number one, they don't want the Chiefs to get them.
Look at Corey. He said, dang, I found somebody JP liked and watched. He's right. The first time for everything. No, this kid's good. And what did he say? He said, hold on, let's put it on screen. Kincaid won't make it past pick 4. FOR?
As a top, yeah, he may FOUR as a top 20.
But he might be talk texting. Kincaid is ranked by most as a top 20 prospect. Hey man, you know how many top 20 prospects drop though? I mean, it happens all the time. We see it all the time that these top 20.
That linebacker from Georgia who was really, really good, who had a lot of issues in his shoulders and things like that. Forgot his name, but he got picked up by the Eagles.
Pick 40. He's saying pick 40.
40. Okay.
Well, hey, if that's the case, we got a shot at him. So, I know. I will say this. I'm gonna spit out a little bit of stuff I know. Veach does want a tight end in this draft. Yeah. So, if he has the opportunity to grab one, I think it's going to be this kid. Because there's nobody out there that, in my opinion, there's nobody out there that will model, actually, I can't say model himself, but almost mimic the play style of Kelsey as this kid. He's good.
Hey, JP, think about it like this. Remember some of the best football that Tom Brady played is when he had Gronk and he had the serial killer at tight end.
Hernandez, yeah, the two tight end set. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
It's the truth.
He played some of his best football, man, because
it's the truth.
Those dudes, man. You couldn't Gronk. First of all, I didn't realize how big Gronk was until a couple years ago. Gronk is a freaking beast at tight end, bro. You shouldn't be that big and that fast, okay? But then you had Hernandez that was just as tall as him, maybe, and almost just as big as him, and just as athletic as him at tight end. So then who do you double team? That's why if you look back then, he didn't have to have a star wide receiver because you had two tight ends that if you put them in single coverage, it was over with.
And Hernandez could pull a trigger. Apparently, he had some great aim.
He was right. He was riding shotgun the whole time.
Yeah, man. I mean,
but when you look at these tight ends, if they can pick, Philip brought up a guy earlier who just is going to be coming out of Georgia, Darnell Washington. He's not as fast, but that's another big, strong guy. If the Chiefs want to maybe have someone just kind of down the line and see what they can do, that may be an option. I mean, between Kincaid and then possibly getting Darnell Washington, a lot of stuff can happen there as well. But when we look at this as a whole, there is a lot of depth. There is a lot of depth that the Chiefs could possibly do. There is one more player I would like to kind of talk about with you guys, and Philip did bring him up earlier. That's Quentin Johnson, wide receiver at TCU. Now, Tommy, you're a KU fan.
Yeah.
Sorry he terrorized you guys. I'm just being honest. Do you think he can make it out of the first round? The Chiefs can get him, or do you think the Chiefs would possibly draft him? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
So it's kind of for me, it's kind of twofold because if you look at his physical attributes, he's a stud. I think he's like 4'4", 4'3", 4'4", something like that. Big, tall kid, pretty good hands. Not the best. He's dropped some balls, but I think his biggest issue in regards to translating his game to the NFL is that he didn't do good against press coverage. Because even when he was burning KU, what KU started doing is they put Kobe Bryant, their best cornerback, on him, and they were press covering, and it kind of took him out of the game the second half because he just torched the first half. So that's the only thing I worry about. But I think in regards, could he get out the first round? I doubt it because if you look at the wide receiver class, it's really not that deep this year. What I would call grade A prospects. So you got to think at some point in time, somebody's going to take a chance on him because of the size and the speed, and he's one of those guys. He's faster, but he reminds me of, you guys remember Crabtree out of Texas Tech?
Yeah.
I remember.
Crabtree. Yeah. And he's faster than Crabtree. I think Crabtree might be a little bit bigger than him, but he's got that kind of game where he can go up and get snag a ball out of the air. He can run you off, down the field, and then he can body you up. So he's got a lot of good things going for him. But I think because of the weakness of the wide receiver draft, that he's probably not going to make up the first round. If he does, he'll be selected before the Chiefs could get to him. I don't think if he got to the second round, I don't think the Chiefs could. I don't think they would expend. They could, but I don't think they would expend the amount of draft capital would to go up and get him with the kind of question marks around.
Now, what if he drops to 26, 27? Do you think they take the risk there? Because what if you have the offensive lineman that the Chiefs want, that JP was talking about, Jones or Quentin Johnson, 27? Who do you take? That's an ultimate question.
I think they go with the right tackle, and this is why, because at the end of the day, your biggest asset on the team is Mahomes, and you want to protect him for the next 10 years. And I think also, too, in regards to what they're doing, is that, I don't think Joe Tooney is going to survive the life of his contract. Not saying that he's going to get injured, but I think at some point in time, because the last year is probably a little bit of just throwaway money. I'm not sure. JP probably knows better than me, but I think is it okay. So they're probably going to be looking to find a replacement for him as well. So you got to think, at the end of the day, do you worry about getting Mahomes weapons, or do you get him protection? You're getting protection all day because he's going to make his own weapons in a sense.
Exactly. 100%.
So, but I think also too, at that point in time though, if you get the offensive lineman, I think in the second round you go straight for tight end if that kid's still available, because then you solidify all your needs pretty much on offense. Because I think that again they're going to add a veteran receiver sometime probably after the draft. Because you got to think, once people draft, they're going to be like, you know what, we just found your replacement, and they're a whole bunch more cheaper than you. See ya. And they're going to cut people out on the street. So I think they'll be able to pick up some people that way. And then I think once that's over with, I think now they can focus the rest of the draft on the defensive side of the ball. Because I think the first couple rounds are going to go offense unless somebody falls to them. Just like they keep talking about, what's the big kid? He will not fall that far. But the big kid that got into the trouble with the drag racing.
Jalen Carter.
Yeah. He won't drop that far. But
at first I thought he was going to, but after hearing what I heard, I don't think he will, just simply because of the fact that it was the girl's fault. That it was actually a girl that caused that. So I think they're realizing that. So
I just think that you go, if the right tackle's there, Caleb, you get him. And then if the tight end's available and he's that good of a talent, if each of them has really scouted him, he's that good, you don't chance it to the second round because you take care of your quarterback first and then you give him weapons second. And then after that, the remainder of the draft, you can fill any holes you have on defense.
I agree with you. I think if you were to fill that offensive lineup correctly, it's not the greatest wide receiver class. You probably got 3, maybe 4 that are you would say are great. Or, I mean, not great, but good enough. A couple day one starters in some systems, but Mahomes can make somebody a day one starter. He's done it. So they're going to go after a veteran wide receiver. I have no doubt about that. You're 100% right on that. And I think by the time it's all said and done, you're going to have a couple of draft picks in wide receiver. But if you take that tight end, you're filling up one of those wide receiver roles that everybody is so worried about. That's what you're really doing. And if you fill up that spot, then you can sprinkle in everybody else you need to sprinkle in. That's key. And then you fill up the defensive holes that you have, a safety, a couple of defensive linemen, maybe a linebacker. I don't know if we necessarily need a corner. I mean, what do we got? 5 corners on the roster right now?
They're probably going to take one. They're probably going to take at least one.
Probably at least get one. So,
you can never have enough corners.
That's true. Well, I tell you what, if you look at Veach, if you remember one year we had 4.
And now we went through that
It
situation.
was a Super Bowl year too. So
we had 4, but really there was only 3 because one of them was so bad.
Yeah. So
hey, what do you guys think about Jody Fortson? Before we
love him.
end this, I do too, man. I know he struggled with injury, and that's the part of NFL. NFL is just a beast. Like, man, if you play the sport, no matter what level, you're around injuries. But my thing is, man, I like that he converted from being a wide receiver to a tight end. And I think maybe if he bulks up a little bit more, I have a lot of hope for that guy because I see a lot of good traits in him. I see a lot. I mean, I love his hands, and I think he can get better at route running. I think the route running from the tight end position is a lot different than from the wide receiver position. Because you're usually down inside, and then you got to kind of work your way through traffic. Where if you're outside, you really just got to get off one man, and then kind of find your spots. I think if he can stay healthy, I'm looking for him to take a really big stride because I think he could be in the mix for some of that playing time if they do draft a rookie because he's got a lot of good. I mean, remember, was it 2 years ago, first game of the season? Where Mahomes throws him that pass over the end zone, he jumps up, man. Yeah. And so when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, who is this dude? I've never heard of him before." And you see these flashes. So I'm hoping that with some, I don't know if he's, working with the Chiefs training staff this season, but I got high hopes for him. I think that Mahomes could make him into something, man, because his size, even when the teams knew he was doing slant on the goal line. His size is so great and he can position his body. It really didn't matter because Mahomes could just put it on him and he can just, get in the way and score. And I think that'd be a great asset. I think they use him a lot on the goal line, but I think that his role could be expanded this year if he can stay healthy.
Well, Caleb and I talked about him his rookie season. And it was his first preseason, the only preseason he got to play prior to COVID, I guess it was. And we were like, this dude here is going to be phenomenal. And COVID hit. And Andy wanted to learn the playbook, and he didn't get to play. He didn't get to see him in the second preseason year. Then we found out, I think it was late February, early March, that we announced it on the show that they were going to convert him. He was going to be a hybrid player, and they were going to convert him. Nobody else has said anything about it. And I think we got a little bit of flack about that one. And then maybe was it April, I think?
I think it was in the OT. I think it was after the draft. It was in the OTAs portion. Moving toward the draft, we find out he's a hybrid player. He was already a wide receiver to begin with. But the Chiefs his size is so big. Let's move over to tight end. He's a hybrid. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
And he's been phenomenal. He's done very well. And it's hoping he can get more reps. But the injuries have been a problem. Yeah, he does a great block. So
yeah.
You just think if you can get him to expand what he does, and then you bring in Justin Ross, that kid, if he can stay healthy, and I really think that they should put him on the snap count just because of his history, but also too is a different beast. From college to the NFL is a completely different beast. Everything's faster. It's more physical. You have to understand schemes more. And I think those type of players that have those injuries or injury type or injury prone, I think it's good to put them on the snap count because they get to realize some success, but they're not put at as great of risk as being there playing, 60, 70 snaps a game. I think
Now,
if
was
you could
he
do
injured?
that,
Was he injured more than one time, or was it the one big injury that got him?
I think he was injured.
he was injured twice in college, right?
I,
Because then he had something with
I
something
think.
with his foot, and then he have something with his back or neck.
Something with his back, but I think the back thing wasn't a major issue. It was more of his his uh his knee
His
or
foot,
his
because
foot.
I know his foot was like, I guess because they said his foot it didn't heal right, and that's kind of what happened when he hurt it again in training camp last year.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he was coming off an injury at school, and then they invited him to camp, and he wasn't healed yet. And I think you guys probably know better than me. I think he had some surgery done to it.
he
So
did.
I think okay, see, and I think it's kind of like Sammy Watkins, man. Like Sammy Watkins, he always had all these skills, man. But really, if you look at his
Mhm.
career, he ain't really did nothing before he came to Kansas City. He didn't really do that much. When he came to Kansas City, he was great when he was on the field. And then after Kansas City, he didn't do anything either. So I think if you can get these guys into the scheme of things with the Kansas City Chiefs training staff, I think that they're going to get them in shape the right way, or they're going to work at whatever weaknesses they have to kind of overcome and become good players that can contribute on the field. I think the same thing with Tony. I think I'm hoping that Tony is sticking around Kansas City this
He
this
ain't going
off
nowhere.
season.
Yeah, he ain't
Okay,
going
good.
nowhere.
Because I think that's one of the guys. Like everybody's like, oh, well, his size and this, that, and that. And I was like, dude, did you not see this dude with the ball in his hands? He is a
Yeah,
misdirection nightmare. And the thing about it, he's stronger than you think because I've watched him each game. He got his hands on the ball, break tackles. He's
yeah.
breaking tackles at that size, and then he's got enough speed to run away from you. And I think again, when we signed or traded for Tony, it spelled in to McCole Hardman. Because if you guys remember when the first time I watched Mahomes take a snap and pitching the ball, and then he run like a running back, and then I watched him do the jet sweep, and I was like, whoa! I was like, wait a second, we don't need two guys that can do that. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I think that kind of spelled the end of McCole. But I think also too is that the way Veach is approaching this, he's like, you know what? Instead of having what I had where, 90% of the passes were going to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, why don't we get about 5 or 6 guys that we can flow into the mix, have a set of plays we call for them, and split up the time and the reps in the field. That way, A, you keep Mahomes spreading the ball around, and then B, you keep these guys more healthy because they're not on the field as many snaps.
I agree. Looks like Doug asked. He says, "Do you gentlemen think that the left tackle and right tackle market will explode in 24 through 26?" You mean you're talking about the
Free agency, man.
It's free. I think he's talking about free agency.
free agency?
I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about.
I don't know if it will or won't. It seems like, as far as free agency is concerned, everybody's got their spots filled. I don't know about you guys, but it looks like everybody's. I mean, there's going to be guys on the street. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it happens every year. I think that most teams have their guys in place. I don't know about you guys, but that's just how I feel right now.
I think it'll directly correlate with what's coming up in the next couple of years in the draft. Because as you guys know, left tackle is a premium position on the offensive line. And if you have 7 tackles come out that are really good in the next 2 years, then it's going to skew the market. But if you don't have that many coming out, then yeah, it's going to make the market go skyrocket because there's not enough good tackles out there. And so people are going to overpay to get those tackles that are really good or really decent at what they do. But if you get lucky and have a draft where you got, say the next 3 years, you got 4 left tackles that are just outstanding and are all first round picks, then that market's not going to jump that high because why pay a free agent when you can get a guy on this rookie deal when you got 3 years and then an option for a fourth? I mean, you take that deal all day, you trade, and then most likely
Absolutely.
what you're going to do too is that if you have that left tackle that you want to draft and you have another one on your team and he's really good or decent, you're going to trade him for draft capital. Simple as that.
Well, and also to add to that, we talked about this on prior shows, our own show. Colleges have learned to, or what they've done is they've kind of schemed their, I guess, packages or positions to where the NFL stands the following year or the following 2 years. So if you got a position group that is aging and they know that, just say like defensive line, and they're all up in that, they all came out, they were all really good. You had a great draft class, and most of them are at that 28 to 30-year-old range. What they're seeing is they're going, okay, let's go back a couple of years. This guy is 27. He's going to be 28. He's had an injury. This guy is 28. We're going to groom because we want our college to be on the map. So we're going to groom that position group so they'll get drafted. And that's what they're kind of doing with every position group right now, especially the Big 12, the big colleges. So when you look at that, if you come from that perspective, you're always going to have great players coming out of the draft now. It's not like it was. And that's why if you look at it, look at last year's wide receiver market and what players were going for, 30 million, 29 million, 28 million, 25 million. Now they're going for 14, 13, 12, 6. Mediocre wide receivers last year were getting 16 million. Look what Sammy Watkins got to go to Green Bay.
Wasn't much.
I mean, he got $16 million to go to Baltimore. He got $14 million to go to Green Bay. And then you got a McCole Hardman that just got $6 million with incentives. You got guys out there that aren't, that's where I love what Veach does, and I love his mindset. And we can almost end with this because this show's run on a little while. But Veach doesn't change the market for any position group. And there's a reason behind that. Because when you do that, it hurts you 3 years down the line. It hurts you 2 years down the line. And if you go and you start doing the Orlando Brown shit, I'm going to make him a Trent Williams, even though he's not a Trent Williams, it's going to cause you issues later on down the line. So let's just let him walk. He can go to Cincinnati and get Burrow ran over, and we'll move on to somebody that's better. I mean, it's just kind of what's going to happen. So I'm not trying to slam Orlando. I know that he had his issues, but he still only allowed 4 sacks on Mahomes last year. If you really want to take the numbers, he allowed 4 sacks. Wiley allowed 13 sacks out of the 26. Yeah. So if we want to put those numbers into,
but how many of those 4 sacks or the sacks that weren't recorded was because Mahomes got the hell out of there?
Well, that's part of it. That's true.
That is true.
You didn't have a quarterback like him that runs for his life, and then he'll tell you, "Hey, I run for my life." He said it. If I had to run scared like I do in the NFL in the combine, I'd have ran like a 4.3. He probably would have. But it's all about, I think, the way they're bringing players up versus the age and the progression of the NFL, and that trend's going to continue because they're realizing that this is what's putting our college on the map. The Alabamas, the LSUs, guys like that. They build every position group. So it's really kind of hard, to go with their philosophy because they're good usually with every position group, especially offensive line, quarterback. Their defensive line's always great. They got good wide receivers. I mean, damn, everybody's good. But some teams just don't go that route. Now they're, especially, some of these teams that are just kind of in the mix, I guess I should say. They're realizing that's what they have to do.
JP, I think a lot of it too is that, okay, think about the last probably 5 to 7 years in college football. Offenses in college football are now going to the exact same format that the NFL is doing. Yeah. And the place where you can see the most is at Alabama. Nick Saban was not a passer of the ball at Alabama until he started getting like Tua and Jalen and, people like that, because he could do it old school. He get the biggest running back, the biggest offensive lineman, the biggest defensive lineman to say, we're just going to run you over. But because of the NFL and what the NFL does, players of high caliber wanted to be in offenses that simulate what the NFL does because they're going to get drafted higher if they can prove they can do what the NFL people are doing. So now that's what Alabama's done. Alabama's in the same thing. They're like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to go 4 wide. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, you would not see Alabama
Never
going
see
4
that.
wide.
No. And Saban realized, look, hey, you know what? None of my quarterbacks are getting drafted. And if they are getting drafted, they're still in somebody's practice squad.
Not doing well.
I want to keep my name, Nick Saban, the namesake of Nick Saban. So it's just kind of part of how it plays out. But I think that's what's going to happen. But anyway, guys, we appreciate everybody for joining. We appreciate Fantasy Sports Corporation for allowing us to do a show on their network. And we will be back tomorrow night on our network, Chiefs Focus Live. Make sure you join in. We're going to try and come up with something for you guys, maybe a little concept, maybe a little giveaway, maybe something. We'll do something. Make it kind of crazy for you guys. Tommy, join up if you want to join up. We'll be back tomorrow night. We appreciate everybody for joining. And we will I don't know what else to say. Caleb, you got anything?
No, see you guys next time. If you want to join our team, we have brought in quite a few people over the last couple of weeks. Tommy is one of them. If you would like to come on, hey, send us a message to Chiefs Focus writers@gmail.com. Or also reach out on Twitter. If you have any questions, let us know. We can find a position for you. If you want to write, great. If you podcast, great. We'll find something, video. If you have any questions, just let us know. Please reach out.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Peace out. We will talk to you guys tomorrow night.